Good morning. Welcome to Community Conversations. I'm Vicki Green. Now, if I say biotech or biotechnology, are you going to say jobs for the Worcester and Central Mass area, or are you going to say, I'm not sure what biotech is? Well, the person who's been called the godfather of the Worcester biotech scene is in the studio today with me, and he is Kevin O'Sullivan. Good morning, Kevin.
Vicki, great to see you again. It's been a while.
It has, and I will say, in all full disclosure, that I did work for the State Biotech Council when they were much smaller and biotech was much smaller, and knew that it was going to grow in Worcester, and I can't believe that we're going to get to talk about some of the
That was the early
numbers.
vision, by the way, and it's happened, no doubt about it.
It definitely has, and it's happened in Worcester, and you've been there for every step of the way. So you're the president and CEO of the Massachusetts Biomedical Initiatives, and it's called MBI, right? For
That's
short.
correct. Yep.
Okay, and you've been there for 20 years.
Yep.
Okay, and you recently announced that you are technically going to retire and pass the baton to John Weaver.
That's correct.
Who's been there for years, and he's going to take over, but you're going to still advise and be involved.
Yeah, he'll take it to the next level. I mean, he's a young guy who graduated, came to Worcester from Connecticut, graduated from Assumption, got his MBA, and a terrific young man. And, it's time. I'm ready to relax for a bit after a pretty intense, fun 20 years. But the change is good, so John will do a great job.
It is good. And you've made a lot of changes in the last 15 years because I met you by bringing press. We were trying to prove that biotech is not just Cambridge. It was starting up in Worcester. Now the Berkshires, are starting to come online. But at first, it was really Cambridge. Even Boston was upset. Mayor Menino would say, why aren't these companies coming across the river? They're all focused in Kendall Square, Cambridge.
Correct.
But Worcester has grown dramatically. So, okay, Mr. Godfather, let's start by explaining why our listeners should care about biotech before they turn the channel. Because people think biotech, and they don't really, I don't think, unless you're working in it, understand what it is.
Well, biotech in its simplicity is drug discovery and drug delivery. And why should we care about that? We should care about health and cures. We want to keep people out of the hospital. And clearly, drugs, whether it's cancer or whatever it might be, are a dependent part of that healthcare system and delivery system. I think that within the next couple of years, we in this country are going to be filling 5 billion prescriptions. Now, I'm not a big advocate of if you don't have to take drugs, don't take them. But a lot of people are dependent on them, and it keeps them out of the hospital, and it keeps them cured and better, or at least treated, And so our health and happiness are the two things that are important in life. And also from an economics point of view, I mean, I was around back when the manufacturing base here in Worcester was going south and overseas. And Bill Short, my mentor from the chamber, was the guy who stepped up and said, we're getting involved in biomanufacturing. And all of us looked at him and
What the heck is that?
hell is that? And quite frankly, he was the visionary. And then he brought everybody together. He was that type of guy. And I was lucky. I was at the right place, right time. And from there, we took off. And why Worcester? Because, number one, we had a medical school. We've got an engineering school in WPI. We've now got, 35,000 students in all those colleges here. Our proximity to Boston. You made a very interesting point earlier about Cambridge is still, it was then and is now the epicenter of life sciences in the world. And to be 42 miles away, what do you think that means? And that's why, I have to be honest with you, why did we develop that corridor concept is because we didn't want to be left out in the hinterland. We wanted to be a part of that. And today,
And you got in early, because I'm
That's
talking
right.
15 years ago.
And right now, we're joined, Worcester and myself, MBI joined at the hip with the Mass Biotech Council and Mass Bio and a burgeoning biomedical corridor. And we're the two largest cities in New England, and we're the anchors of, whether it's in, Hopkinton or Marlborough or Waltham or Westboro or Lexington or Cambridge. It is alive and well, and I think it creates the jobs and the energy and really vitality to central Massachusetts. And our name, by the way, Vicki, is Massachusetts Biomedical Initiatives, and we did that on purpose. Worcester is our base. It's important to us, but on the other hand, people come from all over, and I think what we see is we get our share of companies, and we talked earlier about that down at Union Street or up at the Biotech Park. Or
There's
over at
Gateway Park 1 and 2.
Barbara Ave. And
There's Barbara Ave, and then there's at UMass.
That's right. Yeah.
Across on Plantation Street that people
That
that
was
go
the
to the
original.
hospital.
That's right.
Right, but now if you look and you're going, let's see, north on Plantation Street towards 290, the hospital would be on the right, and on the left is building after building after building. And nobody knows what happens.
Go 290 down to Marlborough on either side. And so it's not territorial. We're all in this together, and the rising tide lifts all the boats. So, again, it's And by the way, it's an industry. It used to be looked on as, oh, it's just for smart PhD types. Biomanufacturing, which we're now going to develop the biomanufacturing park at the top of the hill with Wuxi, and then we're going to talk about that in a minute.
The Chinese company.
A third of those jobs are PhD, a third are master's and college degree, but a third are associate degree or vocational type educational. So it's really spread out in the sense that the manufacturing sector is turning to the associate degrees and to the vocational regional technical high schools for labor as well.
Well, I know, too, that the Mass Biotech Council, where I was, has Mass Bio Ed, and they've been working for years with high schools to bring the biotech, and these kids, I saw it. I went on the vans that we would bring out we went to the high school in Brighton, and they jump on, and they were doing DNA testing and forensic science, and these kids in high school were getting so excited.
And now, listen, as a matter of fact, I'm running from here to a conference call involving Quinsigamond Community College and Worcester State University, their science departments. We are looking at a statewide program for underrepresented people within the associate or state college system, whether they're minorities or low income or whatever. I took a tour of the science labs at Worcester State and Quinsig, and, it's like the United Nations. I mean, it isn't just, everybody is not going to get involved in science, but there are lots and lots of underrepresented women, people in the science field that, if given the right opportunity, we need that workforce. And so we're right now looking at, as an example, Wuxi and training there and trying to get as many people. AbbVie, which is growing over 1,000
Which used to be
workers.
Abbott, and it's up behind the beach.
That's right. And they're now over 1,000 employees and growing like a
They're
weed.
still headquartered in Chicago?
Yeah, they're headquartered. AbbVie is in Chicago. But, the point is there's starting to be a dearth of laboratory space. And so we need to not only go to the biomanufacturing side, but also continue to get lab space built. And that's why we at MBI right now are looking at another building down in Gateway Park to be able to, kind of continue to grow it, because we got to be able to provide that space to grow these companies here in Massachusetts.
So why do you think people think biotech we were talking about this before the show, because when I started 15 years ago, one of my missions was to use layman's terms and explain to consumers what biotech is, because people it was interesting to talk to people around the state about what they thought this was. And a lot of people would say, oh, I don't know. They're sitting in lab coats and playing with microscopes and tissue samples, and what is it?
I suspect that if you were to ask people here in Worcester, walk down Main Street and say, where is our economy headed? I think you'll find people, education for
Healthcare.
sure, healthcare, and life sciences. I think people go by the park and they look up there and they see UMass's connection to it and says, I don't know what goes on up there, but it's good. It's healthcare, it's cures, it's all that. I remember, 10, 15 years ago when stem cell therapy came out, and the religious community, the political
embryonic
community,
stem
everybody,
cell.
oh my gosh, Dolly, the cow. That was understandable. People were concerned about that, and science, you can't stop. It keeps moving. You can control science in a way that is productive versus non-productive. Now the Chinese are reeling around about whatever they're doing, and
I was going to ask you about
whether
that.
or not that's happening. I mean, I don't know what to believe.
Just so people understand what that is, because I was going to ask you when we talk about the Chinese biomanufacturing company, and they're not involved in this. But what's been in the news in the last week or so, it reminds me of the Dolly gene issue of cloning. They were taking embryos and trying to genetically change them.
That's right.
So change your baby.
That's right.
And so when people hear that, they may think, is that what they're doing with that company down in Worcester? Is that where my son might work?
No, but stem cell therapy, let me just use one example of 15 years ago. Today is pretty well accepted. I mean, people, to throw something out, the greatest fear is fear itself, okay? Cloning and all that embryonic stuff, needs to be controlled. I mean, believe me, we're not creating any Frankensteins here. And also,
people think that.
Well, if it steps out of line, I have great faith in local, state, and federal government to step in and control it. I don't think there's any question. And if you look at the Mass Bio or Biotech Council, the
yep.
state, and the state, clearly their role is to be the convener. And that's not something they're going to be running around promoting. They're going to step in and control it. And, I think it basically is something that, it's hard to understand. We're all not scientists or mathematicians.
Yeah, you're not a scientist,
no,
but
I'm not.
you
I
could
hang
be
out
one
with
on
them.
TV.
Well, that's right. I play one during the day. But, from my perspective, if you try to put it, like you said, in simplistic terms about finding cures for diseases, to me, I don't think anyone would disagree that health, if we don't have our health, then all else is really lost in terms of what's about money or fame, and that doesn't matter. So what our job is to really do is, I always mention, it's drug discovery and then drug delivery. Okay, so I'll give you an example. If you have diabetes, there is science going on right now, especially within the electrical engineering area, where they just put a little Band-Aid on that has electrolyte in it. It controls the flow of your, of your blood. It understands and inserts, the insulin where needed and take it off. That's going to be part of the future versus having a needle.
Shot, right.
Nobody wants a needle, okay? So those are the good things that are happening. And the whole idea, we're now into, our name is biomedical, because instead of just biotechnology, the convergence of both drug discovery and drug delivery, healthcare and cures are really all in one. So,
and you hear
it
about
makes
medical
sense.
technology too, and
That's
some
right.
of that is things like heart stents with Boston Scientific,
medical devices
and delivery.
Well, I mean, just the kind of progress that's been made over the years, which is just heart valves and just incredible stuff. And so to me, it's the kind of stuff that allows people to live longer, more productive lives. It's just amazing what goes on. Never mind in this state, but just here in town. I mean, at St.
Worcester,
Vincent
yeah.
or at UMass Hospital, and the doctors that are here. To me, it's just great. It's just amazing.
Well, it's similar to Cambridge in the sense that we have a very large academic community, and now with the Mass College of Pharmacy, that came down here, wasn't here 15 years ago,
No.
and that's drawing the exact scientific population. Then you have STEM and the focus on STEM even at a young age in public schools.
That's right.
But you had mentioned too earlier, if you wouldn't mind, you have a personal the other thing people I think don't understand. Many do, and some don't, and I used to have to explain this, why it takes so much money. I mean, I think the figure back then was, what was it, $6 million to develop one drug over...
$6 million? No, it was close to $1 billion in 10 years. I mean, it's...
Right, and people didn't understand the amount of money, and they still, I don't think they do, because you hear about clinical trials, and some people, I had a guest on the show a couple of weeks ago who was basically had a death sentence for breast cancer, and she went through a phase 2 clinical trial. Now, there's 3 phases of clinical trials, but clinical trials scare some people. Their doctors might say, they might say, I'm going to try anything, which was her point, and it actually ended up working. But the only way we can have these clinical trials is to fund them and to have people to participate in them. And you were telling me a personal story.
Sure. Yeah. Well, my sister, who's now been passed on for, believe it or not, 22 years, hard to believe, Maureen, a real wonderful, wonderful woman, stage 4 ovarian cancer. Now, all of us know or have heard of somebody with ovarian cancer, which oftentimes, probable times, it's a death sentence. She basically went into a clinical trial of a drug called Taxol. Now, Taxol came off trees in the great northwest of the United States, out in the Washington country, special type of bark, which was in
and
research.
they turned that into a medication?
Turned it into a drug, which went into a clinical trial. She had a death sentence. She really did. And it gave her 5 years of life.
Wow.
Today, that drug is basically a prescription drug. I mean, it's now been synthesized into the drugs. It's not a cure, but it certainly gives elongated time, like my sister, of life. And our hope is someday that we're going to find that cure. But the science of our bodies, our system, is so complex. I mean, we all want cancer to be cured, eradicated, and all of the millions and billions of dollars. The way I look at it, this is for our children and grandchildren. I mean, that's the way I look at it. It's been very. I personally, in being in the field, I get frustrated because it's not fast enough and it's costing too much money.
That's what people
and I
are saying.
understand what people say. But listen, when I say cancer now, a lot of people have different attitudes about that because we are finding, whether it's breast cancer or elongation of life and making progress. I think everybody would agree that, we are making progress. And so, but it's just not fast enough. And again, trying to get that health. So, I understand the frustration. I also understand the fear. But again, clinical trials are something you volunteer for. And my sister just unabashed went into it because she had a death sentence.
She had no other.
She was going to die. Right. And, it gave her 5 years of life. And, I was just so proud of her and just so glad that she did that. And from there.
Yeah. So for every clinical trial, if we didn't have people like your sister, that drug would never have made it to market.
And that's
be
funded,
able to help many more people.
And that's right. That's your tax dollars at work, federal taxes at the National Institute of Health in Bethesda, Maryland, which is, clearly worldwide looked on. It's like, Sloan Kettering or Dana-Farber. We're ahead of the curve. And so our government is really, putting the gauntlet down, putting the money down. The other thing about our industry, okay, it's about brains and innovation and brains, okay? That's what we're looking for in the industry. The people who are smart people who love science, who've been working at it for a long time, and, they're doing great things. They really do. And if I can say it for the third or fourth time, it's attempting to find cures for illness and disease and keep people out of the hospital or keep them from going back into the hospital and giving them a fruitful life. And I think when you say in those simplistic terms, I hope people listening would say, yeah, that's what we want. And it's worth the risk and it's worth the amount of investment that we're making. Again, we're all frustrated at times, but we're getting there. We're making progress.
Oh, and those scientists, I've seen them frustrated as well. I mean, they work and work and work, and it might fail after phase one.
Yeah.
But you got to keep trying.
Sure. No
and we
question
have
about
to
it.
keep funding. And we're creating now, we're at the point, like you said, we have never been really a manufacturing hub for biotech in Massachusetts. Cambridge wasn't. That was an issue that they were trying to really beef up the manufacturing side of it because they were really still on the research and development side.
Well, let me tell you, Vicki.
So now we have a $60 million company, Wuxi, from China.
That's something that we, out here in Central Mass put forth. Molecules are being discovered every single day in Massachusetts and primarily in the eastern part of the state and in Cambridge. But they're being manufactured in Asia and North Carolina, not here in state. Now, you can't manufacture them in the greater Boston metro area because it's too damn expensive, okay? And also the quality of life getting in and out of that place is just crazy. It's unfortunate.
I did it for 15 years.
Yeah, I know that. Well, anyway, long story short is that's why we have embarked on this biomanufacturing initiative with the help of the Baker-Polito administration. In fact, Karen Polito has regularly attended our meetings as the Worcester and the Massachusetts Biomedical Initiative to bring biomanufacturing. We now have a park developed. We're developing the park up at the old state hospital.
Worcester
grounds.
State Hospital,
That's right.
behind the
Knocking down
Beechwood.
all of that up there. The old hospital's all coming down.
Because they built a new hospital.
That's
just
exactly. They built it behind there. And now those 46 acres are going to be turned into tax-producing dollars for, our economy, both local and statewide. And that's never generated a dime. So it's a good thing. And Wuxi is putting the stake in the ground, the biologics, the largest biologics company in China. And they chose Worcester, Massachusetts as their first biologics manufacturing company. Outside of Ireland and the rest of the world.
We're the first spot in the U.S.
In the United States, yeah.
that they chose, and they chose Worcester.
Yeah, they have research and development and offices in Pennsylvania and also in Cambridge. Pennsylvania was in the running, but Worcester and putting together, I was part of the marketing team, the WBDC, the City of Worcester, our Economic Development Coordinating Council, the Chamber, and on. All worked very hard and spent a year and a half, courting them, touring them, some information, and now they've made a commitment, and now the state is negotiating with them around incentives, and we're hoping with the next 2 years we'll have quite an investment up there, and 150 to 200 jobs, which will be again for college, PhD and associate and vocational, regional.
Right, and I think
schools.
that's important for a lot of people who are listening. Maybe you want to change careers. You want to go to Quinsigamond or you want to go to Worcester State
That's right.
and take some classes, get your associates, and then maybe you can get a job right here in town in the same field.
By the way, we have 10 colleges and universities here and you mentioned a few here in Worcester. They all have built a brand new life sciences building in the last 10 years. Think about it. Gateway Park, Holy Cross, Assumption, all, new, Worcester State, Quinsig just finished. So, you go up, I toured again, the Quinsig and Worcester State, and you see the science labs are state of the art. So that's music to my to my ears and the sight for my eyes, it's great because it means that these people are going to be coming out, and we want to keep them here in Central Mass. And if you notice, Quincy and Worcester State have more local, regional students, and we want to keep them here, living here and working here and providing them with a job. If you don't have a job or you don't have an opportunity, you're going to leave. So that's the whole idea around it. And WUJI is going to come, and with their staff and training, we're going to work hopefully with WPI and their education and biomanufacturing training facility to train these workers so that they will hit the ground running when the building is done.
Okay, so we're just focusing on this company for now because it's the newest announcement. When are they supposed to break ground, and when would they be looking for
well, already
to hire?
The buildings are coming down up there, and they will be breaking. I know that there's negotiations are going on right now. The developers at WBDC,
the Worcester Business
Development Corporation, who've done the Biotech Park, Gateway Park. I mean, they're just amazing what they've done. Craig Blaze and Roberta Bryan, they've been great. And so basically, that's the key right now is to finish up the negotiations. They're going well. And talking about incentives, for instance, incentives to be used for what? For ground preparation, for job training, whatever. And you got to do that. I mean, I think there's got to be, today in the competitive world, whether it's a ballpark or for a WUJI.
I was going to say, you've got a $60 million and a $90 million.
And at the end,
put it in perspective.
Well, at the end of the day, it's jobs, it's tax base, but it's also, our hope is that this is the first stake in the ground, and that we then will grow the park around that. I mean, if you
with other manufacturing,
yeah, and it belongs out here. But you can do it up in the North Shore, you can do it up in the Lowell area, you can do it down, and there's nothing wrong with that. Again, Massachusetts. Let's bring all of those companies back. Let's do the manufacturing of those molecules here in Massachusetts, not in Asia. And by the way, it's interesting
they're coming here.
The whole area is changing because, and also, Boston is the hub, the capital of the world. But I'll tell you,
we think so.
The chairman Watu of Lake Pharma, who bought one of our companies, Blue Sky Biotech, and he's the guy that's growing his research and development facilities at Gateway, and he's also now have a biomanufacturing in the old Stryker building out in Hopkinton.
Yeah.
Basically, he's growing like a weed. He came into my office about a month ago when he was in town. He's from California. He's got an operation out there. And I asked him about labor. He said, Kevin, I will tell you, labor attraction has not been a problem. He says, as a matter of fact, there's been a real inflection point of what I call the great economic westward hoe of life sciences of bringing people back.
Worcester is the
region.
westward hoe. Yeah.
Well, what I'm telling you is, if you live in the metro Framingham area or Marlborough area or out in Worcester, you want to drive into Cambridge every day, or you want to go to Hopkinton, and they're willing to take a pay cut because what is quality of life worth?
And well, the housing costs.
Well,
they're expensive, but not as expensive.
But going in and out of Boston can be painful. Can be 2 hours.
Listen, I already had the discussion with Tim Murray.
So long story short, is that's favorable to us, and our attitude is we're open for business. We're not bad mouthing Cambridge or Boston, but we're just saying from a partnership point of view. We're here, we're ready, and I think most people would agree that you're not going to build biomanufacturing facilities in Metro Boston. It's just, it's not going to happen.
No, and so, but though everybody's working together, which is something that I know you've worked for us for 20 years.
Huge.
So for as far as the Massachusetts Biomedical Initiative, which is your organization, your published progress report from last year, 2017, stated that you currently had 30 companies as tenants in these incubator spaces with an annual economic impact of $18.6 million?
Right. Yeah.
So what does MBI offer in these lab spaces? Say somebody's listening and they're thinking, I have an idea.
Well, that's
what
us.
Do I do?
Well, I'll give you an example. We are, again, looking to innovation in brains. We're in the commercialization of science, business.
Starting from an idea.
In other words, an idea, someone primarily who comes out of the commercial side that's been working. Paul Wengender, I'll use him as an example, worked for Pfizer in protein synthesis. He started a company with us called Blue Sky Biotech, which grew to be Lake Pharma now and keeps growing, and that's what we do. So we'll say to Paul, come in, Paul, 1-year lease. We'll give you a small lab, and you can grow from there. These guys aren't looking for, 10,000 square feet in a 5-year contract. They want 400 square feet. They want 200 square feet. So that's where we have all of those labs, and when they grow, they can take bigger space. We don't keep them forever. The average time's about 24 to 30 months, and then off they go on their own. And we've had a tremendous success rate, and occupancy has been at 98% for several years now, and that's why we're looking to grow.
So you need more lab space.
That's right, and our role is to do that, and to make sure that there's opportunity for companies who come from all over the state. It isn't just Worcester. It's from, people come from whatever. I like to think we're the best at what we do. We're the oldest one in the state, and we're focused on service. Our cost is good. Our facilities are state of the art, and they've got all of the stuff. A lot of people know what the fume hoods and biosafety cabinets and ice machines and autoclaves and glass wash. We have all of that stuff, but it's an economy of scale. We only have one autoclave in each facility, so they all use it. They all use it.
And do you help them with? Is there a business plan or finance?
Yeah, we have a mentoring program. The biggest thing is finance, and we do not take people unless they have at least a year of funding in the bank, okay? Because I say to them, no, you'll fail. Because if you're looking over your shoulder every month on how you're going to pay your rent or pay your people, so you got to get yourself set, and you got to have a plan that. We don't play science. We don't play science, God with the science. If you have an idea and you have financing for it, let's go, and we make it happen.
A year. They just need a year.
They need a year of financing, and they have to sign a 1-year lease. Okay, so and then they grow from there, and. From there, as I say, it's been very successful. And, I love hanging out with people who are smarter than I am. They are just wonderful, wonderful people. And, they're doing great work. And they're right here. They're right here. And I've been used to it. I've been spoiled. And they're characters. In fact, 70% of our founders and or chief executive officers are foreign-born, by the way.
Oh, wow.
I always like to make that point that in all this arguments and screaming and yelling about immigration, Massachusetts is a home. People come here to go to school, and then they get a job, and then they raise their family. And even though they're foreign-born or whatever, so what? We want to be able to keep those people. It's the brains. It's innovation. Just go outside Worcester. Never mind Worcester, but go to UMass Medical and walk around there. Go out to Shrewsbury. Go out to to North.
It's a melting pot. It truly is,
pot.
And it takes. But the point is, you're here to help these people who have an idea, and it's been working. And the bottom line is, no matter what you may think happens behind these doors, even if you don't understand it, or you have a child that's in high school interested in science and maybe be taking this, it might be in one of your spaces one day. Yeah. You had 70 companies graduate from your incubator last year. You've created over the years more than 550 jobs with an approximate $750 million boost to the local economy. This is, frankly, it looks to be a win-win. But, we have the $60 million biomanufacturing part coming. And what is that? We've talked about what that says about Worcester. But if you look out 10 years as we wrap up, Kevin, what do you see maybe 10 years from now? Because when we first met, I would have never said in 10 years you're going to have this much space in Worcester developed.
Yeah. I would think that the corridor, coming from
Boston,
east to west, is going to continue to grow. The Berkshire is going to take a while. I think that the Mass Life Science Center has been terrific in terms of investing in all across the state. But my sense is right now, when I look at this corridor between Cambridge and Worcester and everywhere in between, I think it's only going to get stronger and continue to grow. And I think that'll benefit Worcester in many ways, okay? I also think that the educational system, whether it's STEM, will continue to grow. I think it's going to be a boon for tax dollars and the growth of the economy. I really do. Obviously, we have to make sure that we're, from what we do, obviously be on top of our game because, it's funny, Massachusetts is blessed right now, but there's another 49 states out there. They want what we have. There's no question about it.
Yeah, but we said that in 2003 when I met you.
Yeah, I know that. But, it's really interesting and competitive. It's very competitive.
But you've helped it along in this area and working with the state, and the state's done a phenomenal job through several administrations.
Listen, going back to Mike Dukakis right on up through the Deval Pass, the Baker Polino administration have been well. They understand the importance of it, and they've been very supportive. And it's accountable, and it's got the numbers to show for it. But the other thing too is thinking about we're going to have more diversity. We're going to have more women. We're going to have more underrepresented minorities and people who maybe have the income problems of that because we can educate them and move them along. I think that is an important part of the industry because if we don't have the workers to fill the need, like Wuxi coming. They need 150 to 200 workers. If we can't fill that, they're not going to come.
And we need about 50 that are associate's degree.
That's right. So we've got to build the facilities. We've got to make sure that we're on top of the game. What's new? What's next? Like the biomanufacturing, something that we were pushing. And you hit the key element here about coordination, the collaboration. One thing that we have here in the Worcester area is a collaborative gene, I call it. And Michael Collins, the chancellor of UMass, I always give him credit for coining that phrase. It's very true. I've always said, the world's run by those who show up, so let's leave our swords and shields outside the door and come in, let's work together and get it done. That was a perfect example of the biomanufacturing park and why that happened, why we passed the legislation in record time at the end of last year, and why we're moving forward with that, because people understood that when you work together, everybody can help and make it happen. And, forget about the egos, all right? This is all about good, public good.
And I think we've done well in Worcester in that. So as we wrap up here with Kevin O'Sullivan, I didn't mention that you were a state rep for 7 years?
8 years, right?
8 years, okay. And then you worked with the chamber, and,
Yep.
You've been on the political side and the business side and the marketing side. You also, I saw that you ran the Boston Marathon on a whim, like you had never trained for this. You just got up that day and said, I'm going to run the Boston Marathon? When was this, a couple years ago?
No, it was several years ago. I was playing rugby at the time, and Darlene Wettengale at the time, who was the wife of a husband, a player her husband was playing with me, great guy.
Rugby, yeah.
We met at, I'll never forget it, down on Highland Street, a little breakfast joint, Theo's, and because I was going to run the first half with her for 13 miles.
First half of the marathon?
I'd never been down to the run, and I wasn't a marathon guy, I was a runner, but played rugby. So I'll never forget it. I had a cup of coffee, an egg sandwich with cheese on it, and on wheat toast, and that's all I had. And so it was kind of a cool, misty day, and off we went. And she had been training or whatever. And we got to the 10-mile. Okay, get to the 13.
Wait, so you go to Hopkinton and you just
just to
sign up?
But no, I didn't. We stood. We in the back. It took us 20 minutes to get to the finish line. We didn't have bibs,
Yeah.
We didn't register. So it was really interesting. It was cool. People were changing their shirts along the way, and I didn't know anything about it, and so I was freezing. But we kept going. And a guy, Chris Monahan from the rugby team, was going to meet us and then relieve me. Well, we got to 13, no Monahan, 15, no Monahan, 17, no Monahan. And then all of a sudden he jumped in. I said, geez, I feel great. Well, that was
So you kept running?
So I kept running. So I'm going to fit. So we got to the Heartbreak Hill. And, I did Heartbreak. I said, uh-oh. So on the way home, going down, I could see the Hancock building. It was ways. And all the thousands of cups, I thought I was going to trip on them because it was so bad. I mean, my legs were just, rigor mortis was setting in. And I was eating. I tell you, I ate a freeze pop. I ate a sandwich somebody gave me. I drank a beer. I mean, I hadn't eaten. I had no more sweating in me, But the long story short, I finished in 4 hours. So it was a great accomplishment. But guess what? I never ran another one. And I'll never do it again because your body's not built to run 26 miles.
My goal in life, I'm a big skier, was to hike and ski Tuckerman's Ravine once. Wow, yeah. I did it once. I'm happy done.
There you go.
Okay, so biotech jobs, big business in Worcester and the region. And if you think about it, and this is just coming up now in my head, is Polar Park that we've been talking about for the Worcester Red Sox. Is the park itself is a $90 million project. Mm-hmm. You look at this Chinese biotech company picks Worcester from anywhere in the United States to start this $60 million company. $60 million, and the park's $90 million. So this needs to get just as much press and be put out there as much as the park, because we want to bring in a situation. We want to bring people from out of state, from out of the area, just like the park does, to come and be cheerleaders. And we need more cheerleaders, just like we need more cheerleaders for biotech. And Kevin, you've been one of the biggest, if the biggest cheerleader.
Well, you too.
For 20 years.
Coming from it, that's
well,
right.
I've been out of it and just but keeping my eye on it.
Yeah.
So listen, it's big business. It's jobs. I hope our listeners keep their eye out on biotech. If you're driving around the city or you're at UMass for some reason at the hospital, take a look across Plantation Street, and you will see all these buildings, and you'll see the Beechwood Hotel. And if you went up behind that, you're going to eventually see a giant, behind where AbbVie is, the big building, you're going to see giant manufacturing. And I'd like to think it's due in large part to you, Kevin O'Sullivan. So Kevin O'Sullivan, President and CEO of the Massachusetts Biomedical Initiatives, which is MBI. You're going to be retiring but advising. the MBI, and still in Worcester, right? You're not going to go
Oh, no,
anywhere.
I'm
You're not
here.
going off to the beach or something.
No, I'm here. Well, I'll go to the beach once in a while. I'll go skiing once in a while, but no.
All right. Thank you for joining me, Kevin.
Thank you,
It's
Vicki.
been great and too long. And thank you for joining me before you officially pass the baton. So that's Community Conversations. I'm Vicki Green. Have a wonderful day.